A man named David is attempting to conquer a legendary haunted attraction for money. The house is rumored to have 9 rooms, each more terrifying than the last, with no one having ever reached the end. The initial rooms are simple, using standard haunted house scares to create a false sense of security. However, as David goes through the house reveals its true nature as a terrifying, seemingly sentient entity. It abandons the cheap scares for intense psychological torment, using David's own memories and deepest fears against him. It's systematically breaking down his sanity and a perception of reality with each room he survives. After enduring 8 rooms of increasingly personal and mind-bending horror, David finally reaches the 9th door, which opens to his own street. Believing he won, he returns home, overwhelmed with relief. And for a short period of time, life seems normal. But an unnerving sense of wrongness begins to creep in, with subtle details of his life being slightly off. Then, the story's twist is revealed when David discovers the number 10 subtly marked on his own front door. He realizes he never escaped. His home is simply the final, inescapable room of the no-end house, a perfect psychological prison designed to trap him forever. The urban legend of the no-end house first materialized in the digital ether of the internet forums, and it's a perfect example of creepypasta, horror stories that have been copied and pasted across the net. The original short story is called No End House, and Brian Russell wrote it. It first appeared online around June 13th, 2013, and quickly gained prominence on platforms like the Creepypasta Wiki. Some popular audio narrations of the story have attributed it to an anonymous author. The consensus within the community, the creepypasta community, there's a creepypasta community, and subsequent official adaptations recognizes Russell as the author. This is the story of the No End House. Let's get spooky. Hey, spooky people, it's your best friend Kenny, and we are back with another spooky, disturbing story. Before we get to today's story, let's make sure you are subscribed to this channel, The Spooky Lawyer. Let's make sure that you like and share this video. The story is a first-person account told by the protagonist, David Williams, and he is goaded into attempting a legendary challenge by his friend Peter, an addict who had previously tried and failed, describing the experience as unnatural and too much for anyone. The challenge is to successfully navigate the 9 rooms of a mysterious haunted attraction known as the No End House. The name comes from the local legend that no one has ever managed to reach the final exit. For the person who succeeds, a prize of $500 is offered. The narrative's power lies in its structured escalation of horror, with each room systematically attacking a different facet of the protagonist's perception and psyche. The progression is about methodically deconstructing the protagonist's reality. Room 1 is the facade. The house begins with disarming boringness. The first room resembles a normal hotel lobby decorated for Halloween, with cliché props like sheet ghosts and animatronic zombies that are described as almost laughable. The initial room serves to establish a false sense of security, lulling the protagonist and the reader into a belief that this is a conventional commercial haunted house. The second room has a higher level of technical sophistication. It has a fog machine and a loop soundtrack, but it remains within the bounds of a typical haunted attraction. It represents a standard escalation, designed to slightly unsettle but not fundamentally challenge the protagonist's worldview. Some fan theory suggests that the fog in this room may have contained a hallucinogen, explaining the increasingly bizarre phenomenon that follow. Room 3, here the story breaks from reality. The room is unremarkable until David realizes his own shadow is missing. This is not a jump scare, but a quiet, impossible violation of the fundamental laws of physics. It is the first sign that the house operates outside the rules of the known world, and it triggers genuine panic. Now, I'm not sure I would notice that my shadow was missing, but, we have to suspend our disbelief here, right? Room 4 is absolute sensory deprivation. This room attacks the protagonist's most basic senses. It is a space of absolute darkness and dead silence, so profound that David can no longer hear his own breathing. The sensory deprivation creates a state of learned helplessness and true fear of the unknown alternative that the unseen approaching presence has in store for him. Room 5, phantom torment. The assault on the senses continues as David is tormented by phantom insects. He can feel them crawling on his skin and hear them buzzing by his face, but he can see nothing. The experience represents a complete subversion of sensory input, blurring the line between physical and psychological torment and making him unable to trust his own perceptions. Room 6, the invasion of space. David enters a room identical to room 3, but the door he came through has vanished, leaving only a solid wall and no visible exit. In a fit of insanity, he scratches at the wall where the door should be, and in doing so, seemingly wills an exit into existence. This suggests the house's reality is malleable, responsive to the occupant's mental state. Room 7, the monstrous female. This room is less detailed, but adaptations feature an encounter with a small demonic girl, a classic horror trope representing corrupted innocence. Room 8, the horror of the self. In this room, David confronts a man who is his perfect doppelganger, sobbing and rocking in a chair. He is presented with a knife labeled to David from management, implying that he must commit an act of self-destruction to proceed. This is a profound attack on identity, forcing the protagonist into this act of harm. Room 9, the void. The final room is a state of total sensory loss and existential despair, described as an in-between state. It is a psychological void where David loses all sense of self and will, ultimately causing him to give up. The narrative progression can be understood through the framework of Noel Carroll's complex discovery plot. The story begins with the onset, where the house's existence is foreshadowed by Peter. The journey through the rooms constitutes a protracted discovery as David gradually becomes aware of the house's true supernatural nature. The final twist serves as a confrontation, where David does not fight a monster, but confronts the horrible truth of his new reality. David's isolation is a key component of the fear, leaving him with no one to convince of the danger he is in. After giving up in room 9, David awakens outside the house. He finds an envelope containing the $500 prize and a congratulatory letter from management. He walks away laughing with relief. The true horror is revealed only when he arrives home, as he opens his front door and he sees a small number 10 etched into the wood. The realization is immediate and devastating. He never escaped. His home has become the 10th and final room of the No-End House. The enduring appeal of the No-End House creepypasta isn't in jump scares or gore. It's in its sophisticated use of psychological horror. The story employs themes of existential dread, the uncanny, and the subversion of reality to create a sustained and deeply unsettling experience. The house functions as an engine of existential dread by systematically stripping the protagonist of his agency and control. The absolute sensory deprivation of room 4 plunges David into a state of profound helplessness against an unseen and unknowable threat. The horror he experiences is the fear of what the alternative was, a fate worse than death, defined by a loss of control over his own existence. The dread culminates in the void of room 9, a space of pure negation that erodes his will to live, leading to his total surrender. The house's ultimate threat is meaningless, inescapable reality. Psychological horror frequently exploits the uncanny, the unsettling feeling that arises from something familiar being subtly wrong. The No-End House weaponizes this concept in room 8 with the appearance of the doppelganger. The sight of a perfect yet emotionally broken replica of himself is a violation of David's sense of a unique and stable identity. This taps directly into the uncanny valley effect, where a near-human copy induces a strong negative reaction by forcing David to confront and simply destroy himself to proceed. The house moves beyond external threats to inflict a form of psychological harm, attacking the protagonist's very definition of self. The horror of the No-End House is built upon a logical and methodical destruction of the protagonist's reality. The process unfolds in distinct stages. Violation of physics. The impossible disappearance of David's shadow in room 3 is the first proof that the laws of the world no longer apply. Loss of sensation. The phantom insects of room 5 force David to distrust his own senses as he's subjected to intense physical sensations from a non-existent source. Malleability of reality. The need to create an exit in room 6 suggests that the environment itself is subjective and can be manipulated. This progression is crucial to the story's effectiveness. It is a journey inward from an assault on the external world to an assault on the body's perception of that world to an assault on the mind itself. The house is systematically peeling back the layers of consciousness, and the ultimate horror is not the entity of the house, but the void that remains when a person's reality, senses, identity, and will have been stripped away. A process of psychological unselfing that reduces the individual to a non-entity. Like all successful urban legends, No-End House's open-ended premise and chilling conclusion invited expansion, imitation, and adaptation, transferring the story into a living piece of digital culture and raising complex questions about authorship and intellectual property in the internet age. Brian Russell himself continued the narrative by expanding the story with official sequels. These continuations were popularized through narrations by prominent YouTube personality Mr. Creepypasta. However, the official continuation ultimately ended on a cliffhanger, leaving the series without a definitive conclusion and reinforcing the story's theme of endlessness. The lack of closure, combined with the collaborative nature of creepypasta culture, naturally spurred the creation of fan-made content. One example is No-End House 2. This sequel shifts the perspective to Maggie, David's girlfriend, who encounters the house in a desperate attempt to rescue him, only to become trapped herself by a door that locks from the outside and a handwritten sign that taunts her with the words, "You won't save him." The legend's evolution took a controversial turn from the publication of a novel titled The No-End House by established horror author Jeremy Bates. The book's premise is an escape room style house with deadly personalized challenges, leading to accusations of plagiarism from the online horror community. While Bates' novel features different characters and a new sequence of bizarre rooms, including a mirror maze and a desert chase involving a Jason Voorhees-like figure, the core concept and title are borrowed. The controversy was amplified by the discovery that Bates had also authored The Sleep Experiment, a novel with a premise that mirrors another famous anonymous creepypasta, The Russian Sleep Experiment. This suggests that he has a pattern of adapting internet folklore for commercial gain without attribution. The reception of Bates' novel has been largely negative among those familiar with the original story. Reviewers have described it as a bad trip with one-dimensional characters and a completely ridiculous plot. Many readers expressed their disappointment and frustration upon realizing they purchased a book that was not an official or faithful adaptation of the creepypasta that they liked. Creepypasta thrives in a gift economy where stories are meant to be shared and remixed, their origins often deliberately obscured to enhance the urban legend quality. When a commercial entity like a traditional publisher takes a community-generated premise and markets it as an original work, it's looked at as plagiarism, but it's also looked at as a violation of the genre's unwritten rules. The incident highlights a fundamental tension between who owns a story once it goes viral and becomes part of the shared digital consciousness. In 2017, the No-End House legend was adapted into the second season of the sci-fi horror anthology series Channel Zero, which was created by Nick and Tosca, titled Channel Zero, No-End House. The 6-episode season was a critical success, holding a 100% approval rating rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Its success stemmed from the radical and thematic narrative reinvention of the source materials. The television series utilizes only the bare bones of the original creepypasta, the core concept of a mysterious multi-room house from which there is no easy escape. The show's creators discarded the original protagonist, room designs, and plot points, and instead built a new story around the central premise. The protagonist is Margot Sleater, who is played by Amy Forsyth, a young woman struggling with profound, unresolved grief following the death of her father, John, who's played by John Carroll Lynch. She and her friends, including her best friend Jules, Aisha D., are drawn to the No-End House, which is presented as a traveling art installation shrouded in mystery. In this adaptation, the house is not an abstract supernatural force. It's a sentient, parasitic organism. It lures victims inside and traps them in a pocket dimension, referred to as the house world, that is a subtly wrong replica of their own neighborhood. The house's purpose is to feed on human memories. To do this, it creates projections, or cannibals, sentient constructs of the victim's loved ones. These creations, such as a replica of Margot's father, provide comfort and affection to their targets, all while consuming their memories to sustain themselves. The memories manifest as physical, pomegranate-looking orbs that are leaving the victims as hollowed-out, empty shells of their former selves. The series' departure is a thematic one, where the creepypasta explored existential dread and the breakdown of reality. The television show transforms the No-End House into a powerful and suffocating metaphor for the inescapable nature of grief and depression. As showrunner Nick and Tosca explained, for the writers, grief and the depression that comes from it was their No-End House. Margot's struggle is an internal battle against the seductive comfort of her own sorrow. The house world offers her the one thing she desires most, more time with her father. The horror lies in her agonizing choice between this false, memory-devouring comfort and the painful reality of accepting her loss and moving on. The true terror is the fact that she can't ever tell that her soul is being eaten. The success of Channel Zero No-End House offers a compelling model for adapting internet folklore. Rather than attempting a literal translation of a story known for its flawed prose, the creators engaged in the process of thematic excavation. They identified the core terrifying concept, an inescapable house, and they explored the deeper human vulnerabilities that might make such a prison seductive. By unearthing the theme of grief latent within the premise, they transformed a simple survival story into a complex psychological drama, elevating the source material into something widely considered deeper and consistently disturbing. The legend of the No-End House resonates because it taps into primal fears of entrapment and the unknown, while also reflecting distinctly modern anxieties. The position as a piece of digital folklore connects it to a new tradition of storytelling, and its premise finds disturbing parallels in real-world phenomena that test the limits of horror as entertainment. Creepypasta as the campfire tale of the digital age. The No-End House is a product of the creepypasta culture, a modern evolution of folklore that has replaced the campfire with the internet form. These stories leverage the unique properties of the digital medium, anonymity, quick dissemination, and a culture of collaboration, blurring the lines between fiction and reality. Like traditional urban legends, they evolve through sharing and remixing, becoming living narratives that reflect contemporary anxieties about technology, isolation, surveillance, and the stability of reality itself. The fascination with an endless, illogical house taps into a real human curiosity about unsettling architecture and liminal spaces. Tourist attractions like the Winchester Mystery House, a mansion famous for its 36 years of continuous labyrinth-like construction, resulting in 160 rooms, staircases to nowhere, and other architectural oddities, evoke a similar sense of the uncanny and spatially impossible. Likewise, roadside attractions such as the House on the Rock and the Abita Mystery House play on similar fascinations with the bizarre and the surreal. A more deeply disturbing real-world parallel to the No-End House exists in the realm of extreme haunted houses, the most notorious of which is McKamey Manor. I did a video on extreme haunted houses that I'm going to put a link in the description for you to watch. McKamey Manor was owned by Russ McKamey, and the manor was marketed as the scariest haunted house in America, but is described by critics and former participants as a torture chamber under disguise. The experience involves intense screening and waiting. Prospective participants must be 21 or older, pass a background check and a drug test, and provide a doctor's note attesting to their physical and mental soundness. They also must sign a 40-page waiver that allegedly details the extreme acts that they may be subjected to. The house involves extreme physical and psychological torment. Unlike the supernatural horror of the No-End House, the horror at the McKamey Manor is allegedly real and physical. Reports from former participants and petitions to shut down the attraction include allegations of being waterboarded, bound and gagged, physically assaulted, forced to ingest unknown substances, and subjected to other forms of psychological torture. McKamey claims to use hypnosis and mind control on participants. A central controversy is the question of consent. The house's motto is that it doesn't end until Russ says so, and former participants have claimed that their safe words were ignored and that they were held against their will after pleading to stop, effectively negating the consent implied by the waiver. McKamey Manor is an inversion of the premise of the No-End House. The creepypasta is frightening because a seemingly safe commercial attraction attraction turns out to be a supernatural prison from which the escape is an illusion. McKamey Manor is controversial because a real commercial attraction is alleged to be a site of actual torture, where the participants' consent to leave is an illusion. The fictional house preys on the victims' minds to feed itself. The real-world equivalent allegedly preys on vulnerable individuals, described in a Hulu documentary as misfits, outsiders, and those trying to overcome their trauma for the owner's notoriety and personal fixations. This is that the most terrifying psychological prisons may not be supernatural entities, but human-run enterprises that expertly blur the line between extreme entertainment manipulation and abuse. It appears that somehow, some way, the McKamey Manor is still operating. The attraction has locations in Somerton, Tennessee and Huntsville, Alabama, and has a history of year-round operation. News articles from late 2024 confirm the Manor's operation despite ongoing public scrutiny and legal challenges faced by its owner, Russ McKamey. McKamey was the subject of legal issues in July 2024, where he was charged with allegedly attempting to murder an SA, a former girlfriend, though these charges were ultimately dropped. Recently, in June 2025, a Reddit thread mentioned McKamey receiving a traffic ticket in Tennessee, placing him in the vicinity of one of the Manor's locations, which suggests that he's in the area and likely operating. However, there have been no recent official announcements from McKamey Manor's official channels or any verifiable visitor reviews from this month. In 2023, the Tennessee Attorney General launched an investigation into the business practices of McKamey Manor and into the long history of controversies surrounding the attraction. But there's still interest in the Manor, and it appears to remain open for those who meet the stringent and unusual application requirements. The journey of the No End House from a lean, effective piece of internet horror to a complex, multifaceted urban legend shows just how good of an idea it was. The story of an inescapable house has proven to be a remarkably adaptable concept, as it's been adapted across different mediums. The original Creepypasta by Brian Russell established a masterful template for psychological horror, constructing a narrative that systematically deconstructs the protagonist's reality, senses, and the very sense of self. True horror was the dawning realization that the prison was seamless and reality itself was the final room. The inescapable terror of our perception of reality being fragile. The prisons of memory and sorrow shows the dark potential of horror as entertainment to become a mechanism for some genuine psychological torment. It comes down to the fact that the most terrifying house is the one that was built inside your mind all along. Make sure that you're subscribed to this channel, The Spooky Lawyer. Make sure that you like and share this video. Follow me on Blue Sky, Twitter, and TikTok. My username is The Spooky Lawyer. If there is a spooky or disturbing story you would like me to cover, leave a comment and tell me about it. Or if you like the video, leave a comment and tell me about it. Or if you're feeling shy, send me an email. My email address is thespookyLawyer@gmail.com. If you'd like to support the channel, you can make a donation. There is a link to buy me a coffee in the description of this video, so buy me a coffee. Or you can become a member of the channel. For the $1.99 tier, you can get access to exclusive content, including exclusive videos, as well as access to my videos before they are published. I appreciate you considering this. I'm going to put the names of all the people who've donated to this channel here, and I'm going to put the names of all of the members of my channel here. You also support me by clicking like, sharing, and watching my videos. And I do appreciate that you watch my videos. And please remember, stay spooky.